I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will you please take roll, Mary?
Murray? Here. Jeff's here.
Here.
Debbie?
Here.
Peter?
Yep.
Sophie here.
Public comments? Hearing none, we'll move to our new business. We have a request for reconsideration of the building and planning and zoning position.
Here, this is my one.
Oh, I knew that.
Or two of them, maybe.
Sorry. There you go. This has been a little under the weather the last few days, so she prepared this and I'm going to read it for her. This is the progress that she has made since she walked across the hall into the building department.
I think what we need to do is entertain a motion for reconsideration and get a second. Is there a motion?
I thought you were
You
making the motion.
had your motion written out, why don't you read
Yeah.
it?
Well, no, that's,
Yeah, you
For the
want to make a motion
reconsideration.
to hire, and I'll
I think
second
we
it.
have to, make a motion to reconsider.
I'll make that motion for reconsideration. I drafted a letter and,
That's true.
And I will support that. Okay,
thank you.
all right.
And I
Okay.
appreciate everybody on their Monday doing a special meeting. And we'll get more into that as we
Okay.
talk about this.
Okay, now you can,
Now I can go.
Yep, debate.
Okay, so since she walked across the hall, she began creating a department procedures manual to document the processes used in the department. The document is currently over 50 pages and updates are still needed to capture changes made to the processes. She redesigned construction permits report to display all the information necessary to respond to monthly county HUD and U.S. Census requests, redesigned permits and inspection reports for the monthly board packet, so I'm sure you've noticed there's added information in there. Began entering and tracking the inspector commissions in the BSNA building program, and redesigned the commission report to eliminate manual spreadsheets for use of generating payroll. She ended the practice of creating cash receipts before receiving payment, which was a headache for the Treasury Department. Modified process to use the BSNA cash receipting program to generate receipts and eliminating creating handwritten receipts. She modified bond refund process to accurately transfer withheld bonds to clear invoices on permits so that no balances remain open. She worked with the BSNA support to clear invoice amounts showing as still owing due to withheld bonds that were not applied correctly. The updates eliminated over $6,000 in invalid open invoices. This project is still in progress. Approximately 60 open accounts still need to be cleared. Only the BSNA support team can use the utility that will fix the remaining records. She was scheduled to meet with them on Tuesday, August 30th, however, but power was out. She has not had time to reschedule. She began to reorganize historic records previously stored by year and by permit number to file by street name and then street number, which allows a worker, anybody, to find any historic permit or other documentation in minutes. This organization will reduce the work required to eventually scan and upload the documents into BSNA. The goal is to continue the above work already started to get the building department planning and zoning running smooth, efficient, consistent, and utilizing all the functions the BSNA system has to offer to make this happen.
hold on a second. Okay. Well, there's no question that Chris is,
Do we need to make a,
she's been in the department now for 2
do we
months.
need another motion? Should we have another motion? Or is this our motion? Was that our motion?
The motion was made by
Because
Jason.
I know you had this draft
supported by
motion. I didn't know if we were intending to make a separate.
Yes, that will be when, right now,
Yeah.
if we're gonna consider Christine for the position, then I'll make the motion.
All right, so we got to vote
We're
on the
considering her to hire
reconsideration.
her.
Yes,
I got
yes.
you.
The other thing too, Chris distributed her resume. Her expertise and experience in not only the IT field, but in the operations, end of a departments is, you know, well detailed. And that's really what she's done until she retired, so, at a young age too, by the way. So I, you know, again, I'd like to take a vote on whether we reconsider Chris Martin for the position of Building and Planning and Zoning Administrator.
So, I guess based on that motion, of course, last meeting, you know, my opinion had to do with the, I'll say, lack of documentation. So was the resume submitted, if I understood your email properly, Chris had submitted a resume and she was interviewed prior to our last meeting, is that the case?
Well, she
We
was,
met with her.
yeah,
couple weeks
we did
before.
interview.
Okay.
And,
Essentially, maybe
she
an
wasn't
informal,
asked
but it
to-
was an interview, in a sense?
Well, no, it was a formal interview.
Okay.
It was mentioned to Chris that she didn't need to put in an application because she was already an employee or an appointed deputy treasurer.
Gotcha.
So, and then as far as the resume went, that's something that Chris added on. I mean, I knew where she came from and how many years she had at AT&T. And the other thing was too, was that whether or not the job was posted, I didn't know that Jason wasn't aware that the board voted to post not only the job responsibilities and duties on 6/16, and we had one applicant since. We had one applicant that came in, and that's when Chris was already running, and matter of fact, Chris sat in on that interview, and Chris was already running the building department, and that's when Chris said, you know, I can do this job and I can do it better, and I'd like to apply for the job, or I'd like to, you know, interview for the job. That's when I told Mary we'd interview, and Mary and I sat down with Chris and interviewed.
And the only reason we redid it this time, because we didn't have a wage to go by.
Right.
Everybody was calling and saying, well, we did hire somebody at $16.50 to fill in the spot. Well, I can't do that. That's, you know.
Well, we
couldn't
didn't,
even tell anybody.
actually, our motion was, tell us what your wage was. You know,
Right.
our posting was, what do
Make
you want to
your
do it?
offer.
As the one young lady did say, $20 to $22 an hour.
Right. And
You
now
know,
we're-
that was
we're
her
over-
wage.
We're over $23 an hour right now. That's where we're at.
Well, one
Mhm.
thing I will say from being in business is prior to COVID and all that, we've never, in all the years that we have put postings out for positions, nobody ever states a wage. When you interview is when the interviewer and
In my experience,
interviewee-
there's usually a range
A range, yeah.
given, yeah. So I did agree, I still agree with the clerk that the process maybe should have been done a little differently. However, my biggest concern at the last meeting had to do with, really, there's no documentation for us to really discuss. You know, I'm a big proponent of, when you submit an agenda item, if there's documentation there, having a resume would have been, and then having in words kind of, which written essentially what you said, which was that you have interviewed. I wasn't aware that there'd been any formal discussions with Chris. I didn't know any of that process, so I wasn't comfortable at the last meeting moving forward. So as I always do, I encourage
Yeah, we
that
interviewed-
type of
we
proactive
interviewed two
in-
people, and we
information
didn't
in the
have
agenda packet.
Information on the first one either, so.
Yeah, you do.
Today,
Yes, we do
Yeah, you
we
do.
do, yeah,
Yeah, you
on
do.
her resume, you know.
today we have
Yeah.
something from Chris. A week ago, we could have avoided this meeting, in my opinion, if we had been properly prepped for the meeting.
If you'll excuse us, we're debating reconsideration here.
Yeah, and if there were multiple candidates, the other one did not interview well, or because it was a lower wage that just wasn't.
Well, she didn't have any experience.
Okay.
That was their main problem.
And her requested wage was $20 to $22 an hour. And that's what the conversation was in the interview, was what is your living wage? I don't want to say $14 an hour, and then all of a sudden in 4 months you need more money. You know, what is it going to take for you to come here? And if she had to leave the job she had and do retraining, it was going to be $20 to $22 an hour. That came from the other candidate.
And I was here when we voted to put it out, so I'm certainly partially at fault for not, we should have been more clear on maybe, again, listing a range depending on qualifications type thing, and that may have, again, not that Chris isn't going to be a great
We did
candidate,
list
but
the job responsibilities, but no, we didn't include a wage, and that was something the board voted to put in the paper. So I'd like to,
I had voted against in the last meeting. Again, it was no direct about Christine Martin or her background. It was just wanted to make sure it was publicly known. We were accepting resumes, and come to learn that we have been since 6/22. We do have a resume, that a well-qualified candidate, which is why I put a motion to reconsider my vote. And furthermore, I have talked to the gentleman that's helping us out, volunteering his time. And he did inform me that things can change at any second for him, and if it does, he needs to do what is best for him. So I sense a little sense of urgency after that conversation,
And to be perfectly honest, he's not volunteering his time. He's
Well-
getting paid $16.50 an hour, but he's
Yeah.
not staying for
but he's
$16.50 an
staying
hour.
right. Very, very temporary.
Yeah, he's doing it to do a favor, so,
So let's go ahead and take the vote on the reconsideration.
Murray,
yes.
Getzinger,
Yes.
Swag, yes, Granby,
Yes.
Banner.
Yes, please. Okay, using the candidate that we did interview and the wages that she was requesting as a living wage, knowing what we paid in the planning and building department prior for the value, I'd like to make a motion to hire Chris Martin as the building and planning zoning administrator with a weekly salary of $598 per week, which is annually $31,096. Monday through Thursday from 9 to 4 with a half-hour lunch. Christine will maintain her appointment as deputy treasurer, working in that department as needed, and it should say at no cost, at no additional cost. Will attend and record minutes of the monthly planning commission meetings at a rate of $75 per diem per meeting. And her personal sick and bereavement vacation time is, because we have it in our employee manual and our policies and procedures, will be based on our policies and procedures. I'd like the beginning date effective immediately, or unless you want to do that for Monday, or what's comfortable for you, Mary.
What's comfortable for Chris? I mean, she wouldn't,
Is there when's the next pay check run? Pay
Well,
period?
we'll just say effective immediately tomorrow, and you get a
And
sick
then
day if
December.
your teeth are still too bad.
That's my only concern is, right now I'm feeling okay, I'm just starting to thaw, and,
we'll just keep it immediately and then
I'm
she
thinking I'll be able to come in for at least a few hours tomorrow.
So the effective start date would be September 27th.
All right, I'll second your motion.
And so, just clarify, Chris has been serving in that capacity intermittently, doing essentially the job of that position?
For 2 months.
And she's doing a great job, I assume, Mary,
Absolutely.
Chris?
Yeah, Mel's
And-
happy with her. I talked to Mel the other
So,
day.
okay.
And she's changing, she's really
I'm-
taking it to the
I'm
next level.
an organizational guy, and what Sarah read, I think is great.
And that's when she's not being deputy treasurer.
Well, that was through the,
But
first,
part of that came from the Treasury Department, because I've been asking Christine White to do something to change the way she
The
did
bonding.
permits and stuff, because it was a cluster when I was trying to reconcile and make deposits and everything. Christine never did it. In the first 3 days that Chris was over there, it was done, and we've had no issues.
And I did also put down some notes here that the prior total salary and benefits that we were paying to run the building and planning department were $42,243, about $42,250 a year. This motion is for $31,171, which is $11,000 less than we were paying to operate the department prior. Of course, when you look at the policies and procedures and you're figuring what the scheduled vacation or sick days or bereavement days, then it'll make a little bit of a difference, but it's a good $10,000 less than what we were paying prior.
Is this salary or hourly?
It is salary.
It does list her 9 to 4. I mean, so she's a salary, but expected to be here at that time.
She said she'll do what it takes to get the job done, and if she has to stay extra, then she doesn't have to worry about punching out. That's kind of why she didn't want to go hourly.
I get that and appreciate that. And my biggest thing is there's a certain time that people do expect us to be here, so at the minimum was my thing. So
Yep.
my assumption is that I work 9 to 4. open, I will.
Are there any other additional questions either for wages or Chris? Mary, would you like to run it?
Rick?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes. Motion carried. I'd like to thank the board for their diligence in making sure they paid attention to what Chris has to offer. I think it's a real win for the township. So, speaking, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn our meeting at 7:15 p.m.
Second?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.